Landlords say they're being pressed for information on their tenants by federal immigration authorities. And a nonpartisan think tank expects energy prices to soar under the new tax cut and spending law. Good morning, I'm Kristen Wright from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. Immigration authorities are defending a new tactic to locate people living in the country illegally. The Associated Press says landlords are receiving subpoenas from the Trump administration for information about their tenants, but question if they're legally required to comply. NPR's Tovia Smith reports.
Landlords are getting written demands to share leases, tenants forwarding addresses, and ID cards from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Anti-Fraud Unit, according to the AP. But the subpoenas are not signed by a judge. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin declined to comment on whether or how many subpoenas are being sent to landlords, saying in a statement to NPR that DHS would not comment on its tactics. But she added, subpoenas don't need to be signed by a judge to be binding. Failure to comply with an ICE-issued administrative subpoena, she said, may result in serious legal penalties. Tovia Smith, NPR News.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is calling for the release of government files on late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Johnson's break with President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi has escalated tensions. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports.
House Speaker Mike Johnson called for the release of the Epstein files during an interview with conservative podcaster Benny Johnson, saying it's time to put the controversy behind them.
Put everything out there and let the people decide it. I mean, the White House and the White House team are privy to facts that I don't know. I mean, this isn't my lane. I haven't been involved in that. But I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there.
Johnson said Attorney General Pam Bondi needs to explain statements defending the refusal to release additional information related to Epstein. House Democrats have seized on the debate to force procedural votes to release the files, drawing GOP support in some instances. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, the Capitol.
At least 20 people were killed in a stampede at a food distribution site in Gaza today. As NPR's Greg Dixon reports, the site is run by a U.S. and Israel-backed group that has been criticized for the way it provides food.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, confirmed in a statement that at least 20 people were killed on Wednesday when a crowd at one of its food sites in Gaza surged. They say most of those deaths were the result of people being trampled. The health ministry in Gaza said tear gas was fired on people seeking food, resulting in the stampede. Since Israel replaced the UN system providing food aid with GHF in May, Gaza health officials say more than 500 people have been killed by Israeli military fire outside the food sites. GHF has been criticized for running chaotic and dangerous aid operations in Gaza. Over 100 humanitarian organizations have called for GHF to shut down. GHF says it is providing vital food to the people of Gaza. Greg Dixon, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
President Trump is downplaying the possibility of sending long-range weapons to Ukraine. They would allow Ukraine to strike deeper into Russian territory to fight off attacks. Trump announced a plan Monday to deliver U.S.-made Patriot air defense missile systems to Kyiv. Speaking to reporters last night when returning to Washington, Trump said those arms are on the way.
They're already being shipped.
From what countries?
They're coming in from Germany and then replaced by Germany, and in all cases, the United States gets paid back in full.
Russia has launched massive strikes against Ukraine since Trump announced the weapons sale, including in Ukrainian President Zelensky's hometown. The Senate is beginning to debate President Trump's request to rescind about $9 billion in federal funding. The money is earmarked for international efforts to combat famine and disease, as well as the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Authorities say the man suspected of killing a Democratic Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband likely acted alone. Matt Sepik of Minnesota Public Radio reports the suspect was indicted by a federal grand jury Tuesday.
57-year-old Vance Belter is charged with the murder of former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and with shooting and wounding Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Both have since left the hospital. Acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson says Belter left a handwritten letter in his car in which he says Governor Tim Walz wanted him to kill Minnesota's Democratic U.S. Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith.
Belter claims that people threatened to hurt his family if he didn't participate in this plan to murder Senators Klobuchar and Smith.
Thompson says there's no evidence that Belter targeted either senator. For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in Minneapolis.
The massive tax and spending bill that President Trump signed July 4th will end tax incentives for wind and solar projects. A nonpartisan think tank expects that to drive up electricity bills. NPR's Michael Copley reports.
Without tax incentives, the cost of wind and solar projects will go up, and the country will likely use more natural gas to generate electricity, pushing up power prices nationwide by at least 9% over the next decade, according to Energy Innovation, a nonpartisan think tank. The increase could be much higher in Republican-led states that don't encourage renewable energy projects, which are often cheaper to run than gas plants. Energy Innovation says power bills will likely increase by between 60 and 350% in Oklahoma by 2035. A White House spokesperson, Taylor Rogers, said in a statement to NPR that President Trump is taking steps to boost U.S. energy production. Michael Copley, NPR News.
A volcano in Iceland is erupting again and forcing the evacuations of people in the town and a campsite of Grindavik. Guests at the Blue Lagoon geothermal spa had to leave. Officials say the flowing lava is not threatening infrastructure at this point. The fissure eruption is not far from the capital, Reykjavik. The area has seen a series of eruptions in recent years. I'm Kristen Wright, and this is NPR.